Hi, I'm Kim Stodghill, and today I'm really excited to be joined by two of my teammates, Maureen Pasco and Melinda DiMaria. And we are here this week to talk about the enrollment cliff, or you may have heard it referred to as the demographic cliff, in which there's this idea out there that there is suddenly going to be this major drop off in the number of high school graduates and therefore making more space available in the college admissions world. And so we're going to break that down a little bit today with some data and some things that we want to share to enlighten everybody about that. So I'm going to take a step back and let these two take over and present what they have learned about these things. Ladies, take it away.
All right. Well, thank you. I'll start off. Kim, like you said, we've been hearing a lot as we're meeting with parents of class of 26, 25. I'm sorry, 26, 27, 28. Oh, I don't have anything to worry about because of the demographic cliff. And I've heard it often enough that I thought, I don't think people are really grasping what the opportunities are in the demographic cliff, if there are any. So I looked at it a little bit closer. Melinda definitely is going to be able to share more data up close and personal. The main thing that I would like for folks to know is if you live in the Southeast, or if you want your child to go to college in the Southeast, you probably don't have a demographic cliff. Schools like the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, it's not going to be any easier to get into North Carolina at all. In fact, the rate of growth in North Carolina, and Melinda will be able to speak to this later, but the rate of growth in North Carolina, while it's slowing, it's still growth. And I really want people to understand that. Sometimes if you only look at a headline, you miss what the actual story is. So if you see there's a decline, a downward trend, everything's gonna be great for my kid and just go blithely forward. What you're missing is that downward trend is in the rate of growth, which is still growth. So if you want to go to University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, University of South Carolina for sure, Georgia, Florida, Tennessee, you're going to have to be aware of this, and you're going to have to be careful and still pay attention to everything you need to do to make yourself a good candidate for these schools. Now, there are opportunities in the demographic cliff, and those are in the Northeast, kind of the Big Ten schools. But a school like the University of Michigan, they're not going to have a demographic cliff. They're just not. Penn State, maybe take a look at Penn State, University of Wisconsin-Madison, take a look at it. But just understand that any university, even if it's in the Northeast, is going to be protecting their flagship university. So if the state as a whole isn't experiencing a decrease in potential students, they're not going to let their flagship go down. They're going to take care of some of their satellite campuses, get rid of those. They're going to do other things, but they're going to protect the integrity of their flagship university, and they are going to still be difficult to get into. So that's kind of my big picture. And I know Melinda has some numbers to back this up.
Good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to join Stodghill from the side of having spent roughly the last 30 years working on the college admissions side. And I've long been fascinated with WICHE data. WICHE stands for the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education. And it is a think tank that looks at lots of data and demographic information from across the country. And so for just a moment, to kind of piggyback on some of the things that Maureen has shared, I'm going to show this to you. Most of what you are able to see on the WICHE website is free information. However, I'm going to tell you, you don't need to get into the weeds of these kinds of things. This is something that colleges and universities, their enrollment management, their provosts and presidents are combing through this data. This really doesn't need to be something that stresses you too much. But what they are paying attention to is birth rates. And so in this slide, you'll see the birth rates from 2022, 2042. And when these students are predicted to be ready to graduate from high school and then applying to colleges. And you do see overall across the country a downward trend. You'll also see that it does look at graduates by race and ethnicity. You'll also dig in, if you look in that first box, you'll see that it breaks it down by public schools and private schools. Again, I don't want you to worry that this sort of in the weeds information is something that you navigating the college process really need to be too worried about. But it does help you understand a little bit more when you hear people talking about the enrollment cliff or the demographic cliff. So just to piggyback on what Maureen shared a minute ago, I'm going to pull up North Carolina as an example. And again, this is free information that you can pull as well. So North Carolina, if you were to dive into this, you're really going to see they actually have a little bit of growth overall in this period of time that this data is looking at. And you're going to see that their lowest point for the state is really kind of happening now. They have another little dip coming down the road in 2032, but that's going to pick back up. So again, this isn't something that you really need to be stressing about. There is going to be something in North Carolina where they see an increase of about 15% in their non-white students who are graduating from high school. And their peak is really going to be in that 2034 piece of it. So just briefly from the college side, as colleges are looking to determine where are they going to mail their brochures to, what parts of the country are they going to try to target sending recruiters to do high school visits and to do college fairs, they're going to see where is the populace. So if they are in a state where there is a dip in birth rates, they're probably not going to spend as much time going to visit that state with boots on the ground. They may do some virtual things. They may do some collateral mailings to encourage people to come to their campus. But in terms of being thoughtful of their fiscal and physical resources, they may have to have some different strategies with that. So just again, one more as a comparison. I'll pull Georgia for you just to see as a comparison. So Georgia's kind of dip is now in 2025 is kind of where their dip is. And then it's going to start to grow and level out, if you will, over the next several years. So kind of flat. And so kind of watching to see what other states, state institutions in particular, may come to the state of Georgia to try to recruit those local residents to consider their schools. Maureen, would you add or subtract from any of that?
Well, that was great. Thank you. I have two things. First of all, the time span that everyone's talking about ends in 2042. Your child will be finished their PhD by 2042. So keep that in mind when anyone's looking at the data. The other thing is, for a state, let's just say, for example, Georgia has a dip, an actual dip of 2% over in one given year. What does that actually mean as far as opportunity for students in Georgia, for example? So if you go to a large suburban high school in Atlanta, maybe 500 students in your graduating class, and that year is a 2% actual decrease in the number of potential applicants, how many students does that turn into? How many more spots does that suburban Atlanta high school potentially have? I'm asking Melinda, but I'm sorry if that
It was a math problem.
The math part would be the one that would slow me down. I think you don't want to get into the weeds on it and stressing about those pieces. Also remember that colleges are going to over admit to be sure they fill their classes. So I've often used the comparison of inviting people to a party. Not that college is supposed to be a big party, but the idea that you want to have a good showing, right? So you over invite, knowing that there are going to be people who don't enroll for whatever reason. And so you're going to find that we over admit at most colleges around the country to have that buffer. Also because things happen over the summer and what is called melt. And this heat, at least that we're experiencing in the Southeast right now, we certainly feel like we're melting a little bit. But there will be students who come off of a waiting list at school X and then they may decide to drop their acceptance that they had to another school to go to that school they got off the wait list from. So getting down into the minutia of exactly how many spots, you need to let us help you navigate those pieces. These are the relationships that we at Stodghill are going to be able to navigate with college admissions professionals across the country, whether they are the regional manager, the territory manager, or the dean or vice president of enrollment at those schools. We are in their inboxes, they're in our inboxes, sharing what's happening. And we're also paying attention to what are those national trends that people are seeing. Also, to play into it, we're also paying attention to what's happening with the economy and the political climate, because those things can affect where people choose to go to school. And so the one thing that you have control over is how you do in your preparation for your college application. And then what everybody else does, the college or the other applicants, is the piece that you just have to be calm and comfortable with where you are in it. And that's one of the things that I've really enjoyed about working as a team with Stodghill, is that we are working as a team to support these families in their various needs as they go through this complex process.
Thank you both so much. That was great information. And I feel like we have debunked one of the myths, of which there are many oftentimes in this process. And I would just like to say, if there's anything that we can do as a group to help you and your family navigate this process, we'd love for you to reach out. Thank you so much.